Hey everyone, Nazori here, and I wanted to make a quick video about a brand new game that is in early development testing called Deadlock. I have been unable to put this game down for over a week now. It is the new game from Valve, the makers of Dota 2, and it is very, very well done. Essentially, it's a mix of Dota or League of Legends with a hero shooter. So similar to Smite, but honestly, when I played Smite, it didn't really hook me in. It felt like we had characters in a third-person perspective, and we were just chucked onto a MOBA map. But it didn't really feel like a MOBA. Deadlock seamlessly integrates a MOBA into a hero shooter. It is incredibly well done. I'm already sitting, I think, at 127 hours played or something, and there has not been much time to play. I have been sleeping very little and playing a lot of Deadlock. I actually uploaded this video just before, but there were comments about people who did not know what the game was, and I don't think I did a very good job of that. So I want to really quickly, before we get into the tips, explain exactly what the game is, how to get in. If you already have access and you're not interested in this, there should be a chapter you can skip to start on the tips. But what is Deadlock? So I'm going to go ahead and jump into a private bot match here with Paradox. Actually, you know what? Oh. Okay, that was bad. Okay, there we go. All right, so I'm going to jump into a private match real quick to show you the map, show you what's going on in this game. Now, there are a lot of heroes to choose from. They have different abilities. You can see a preview of them. This one here is like a snipe, right? But a lot of different champions. There's some that are better at supporting, some that are better at tanking. It's pretty typical if you've played games like this. But we're going to go ahead and hop in. And now the matches themselves are 6 versus 6. There are 4 lanes. So if you're familiar with, say, League of Legends, there's usually 3 lanes. In this one, there are 4 lanes. 2 solo lanes. This is a bot match warning saying they don't have their AI. Very well done for bots. There are 2 solo lanes and 2 lanes with duos. So right now, we are in a solo lane, it looks like. Those guys are going off to their duo lane. And these right here are the track lines. They're very, very important. You basically can ride these all game as long as you own the lane. As long as your minions have pushed up to a certain point in the game, you can see it on the mini map down there. You'll be able to take these track lines right to the lane. And it's pretty typical as far as you start with how it goes. Your lane opponents across from you, minions are going to be pushing the lane endlessly until one person deletes the enemy base. But just looking at the map right now, you have basically the lanes shown with these colors, and then you have towers, guardian here. Back here you have what's called the walker. Past that, 2 guardians, and then the base. So it's very much structured like most other MOBAs, but there is a lot of extra bits to this game that aren't exactly they're innovative, I would say. So I'm going to get into some of the tips on how to deal with some of these new mechanics later on in the video here. But I just wanted to go over a little bit of what the game was. And I should probably also explain. Whew, this is a bot, so I think we can just run him down. Yeah, it doesn't look like he's very well done, and I'm failing to punch him out. There we go. Anyways. I'm not going to go over too much about all the little bits and details about the game. You know, where shop locations are. There's some located around the map. We're going to get into jungle creeps a little bit, which usually spawn right here, but that's going to be at 7 minutes into the game. But passed on here is a permanent shop that's always here. So I'm not going to go into the little details about the entire map and how it works, but I did want to give people an idea of what kind of game this is. I don't want to just sell it as just another MOBA, honestly, because I am absolutely helplessly addicted to this game. It is definitely very well done. I highly encourage, if you're interested in MOBAs, you've played others, to give this one a try. So if you want to give this game a try, how do you do it? Because if you go on to Steam right now, you're going to notice that in the store, I don't think you can actually play this straight up. It'll just have a wish list option, and it doesn't actually give you access to play. And this does not get you into the test. So don't just click this button and say, all right, I'm going to get in. What you have to do is you have to get someone who has the game to invite you. Once you're in the game, there's this little button here, and you can actually go ahead and invite your friends to join. Now, the kicker here is if you don't have someone on your friends list, that doesn't have access, it's difficult. So if you don't have access, probably head over to their official Discord. You can actually ask on my Discord. I can put the link in the description of this video, or you can jump into Twitch chats. People are exchanging their friend code on Steam to get invites all over the place. So until this game is wildly available, I would recommend just looking around. The invites go in pretty quick for some, and for others, it's taking a long time. I think I invited someone and they got it like an hour later. Some people are telling me it's taking them a day or two to get it, but just try and see if you can get people to invite you, and hopefully you get in. That's pretty much it for what the game is and how to play. Now we're going to go on to the beginner tip. So first things first, I wanted to mention that aside from the way you get access to the game, the regional servers are also not up around the clock. They have a round robin system where each region is open for its prime time, essentially. Currently, the NA servers are up from 4 p.m. to 6 a.m. my local time, which is Eastern Standard Time. And on Friday through Sunday, it's 12 p.m. to 6 a.m. So most of the day is covered, but still there's a big chunk of that day that is not available to every single region. So if you want to play in your region, not on the time that is allotted for it, you can do that. So to get access to your region outside of its allotted time, what you're going to do is once you're in game, you're going to hit F7, which is going to open the console window. And from there, you're going to type in the command. You can use tab to complete here to get exactly your region. The command itself, I'll put in the description of this video, but essentially it's this one right here, Citadel region override. And then you're going to put in either -1 through 5 for the different regions. And you'll notice on the right-hand side there that the region does switch to whatever region you are trying to get to. This way, if it's out of your region's time, you can be like me and suffer through 3 hours of 200 ping at 7 in the morning. Now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the new player tips. We are going to go ahead and hop into the sandbox here. All right, so once you start the game, you're going to be put into a lane where you're going to start seeing some of these minions. If you're familiar with MOBAs, you're familiar with the mechanics of hitting minions and getting money. Now, in this game, they have souls instead of money, which you'll see in the bottom left of the screen. But in the sandbox here, it just shows an infinity symbol because you have unlimited money. But I want to explain a few little tips about these minions because they are very different than your typical MOBA. So at a standard here, when you kill these minions, you're going to get an amount of souls. You can kind of hear the little chime of money coming in when we kill them. But that is only half of the souls that you'll get. The other half is in the orb here. So basically, your enemy who will be opposing your side can steal half of the money from that minion by hitting the orb as it pops. Unlike Dota, where you can just kill your own minions for money, you can't do that in this, but you can steal half the money by hitting the orb. Now, there's one part of this that most people don't know about, and that is that past 10 minutes in the game, all of the money is actually in the orb for every objective, for champions, for towers, for minions. So post 10 minutes into the match, everything is in that orb. So after you hit the 10-minute mark, you're going to want to focus on always trying to steal those orbs whenever possible. If your buddy dies, go for the orbs. If they break a tower, go for the orbs. You can essentially deny a lot of money post 10 minutes via that mechanic. And I think a lot of people ignore that because they think it's not much and that just half of it is floating up there. But after the 10-minute mark, it switches to completely in the orb. So keep that in mind when last hitting early on and post 10 minutes. The other thing I want to explain is if you are up against someone who is incredibly good at last hitting, and they are just stealing every orb that pops up before you can shoot it, which happens when you're up against someone who's just generally cracked at the game, you're going to want to counter that with melee attacks. So melee works a little bit different. If you do melee something to death, you actually get all of the souls up front without an orb appearing. So if someone is denying you pretty heavily, just go and finish one off with melee. You'll see that there is nothing that pops up. You get all of the souls amount right up then and there. So keep that in mind. If someone's denying you, try and hop around and last hit with melee. And now the last thing I want to explain about the laning phase, another tip here is the power of the healing mob. I am going to half health my champion here. And I'm going to show you just how effective this guy heals us. So there are 4 minions every wave. One of them has a little banner and he heals you. And he's incredibly good at doing it. You don't want to underestimate this guy. If you're kind of low, what you want to do is sort of just take cover from the enemy, but be in line of sight of this guy here. He'll heal you up pretty good. A lot of people underestimate the actual healing amount of this. And another big thing to note is that it is a chain heal. If you are next to a minion, in line of sight of a minion that has line of sight of him, it will chain heal over to you. I'm seeing if I can demonstrate this here. but he just keeps hitting me directly. So I don't think I can, but it is a chain heal. If you're familiar with chain heals from a lot of different MMOs. And it also can chain from different heroes. So if your buddy is in lane with you and he's here, the mob is over here and you're here, you will still get the chain heal because you're close enough to your buddy when he gets healed. So don't underestimate him. If you're getting bullied a lot, try and take some cover and get some heals from this guy. He is invaluable. But that is it for the laning phase tips. On to the jungling. Jungling basics. Now, there are 3 different grades of jungle mobs. You have the little guy, the medium, and the elite. These guys start appearing at 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And these 2 start appearing at 7 minutes. I think it's 7 minutes on the dot. So at 7 minutes, these guys appear. You want to start jungling almost immediately. If you're in a solo lane, you can usually push your wave, peel off, and kill one of these little creeps. They're very easy to kill, even with no gear. This guy has no gear right now. I did not reload my gun, but they are pretty easy to take down, especially if these guys weren't here. But after 7 minutes, these guys start appearing as well, and they are also very effective. One thing I want to note about the big guy, though, if you don't have good items for clear or specific jungling items, I would stay away from trying to clear these guys. I think they're time inefficient. Some of the jungling items that you're going to see in the shop here are monster rounds, which is the biggest one. It gives you damage versus NPCs. And a couple other ones that are also really effective are active reload or melee charge, both of which reload your weapon with a heavy attack. So you'll see that I have 3, 2, 1, no bullets. If you heavy attack, you get your bullets back, right? So these are very effective jungling tools. If you're going to wind up running around the map jungling a lot, you may want to pick those up. Aside from the jungle creeps, I don't think I have it in the sandbox here. I'm going to try and overlay a clip for you. There are also vending machines that appear at 10 minutes. The vending machines don't require any special equipment. All you have to do is heavy swing them, and they give you quite a bit of souls. They're marked on the map with a square and a circle. Also, I should mention the jungle creeps are marked as a triangle with a set of lines indicating their difficulty level. But at 10 minutes, these vending machines appear, and they are really good. So keep an eye out for them, because all you have to do is run up to them, punch them a couple times, and get a ton of souls out of them. And the last thing on the list that I want to mention about jungling is also the map buffs. There are 2 types of map buffs. These ones here, you're going to find on the 2 bridges on each side of the map. They give you a temporary boost, whatever it says on it. This one's for movement, so we should get a little movement and stamina boost. Oh, no, it actually changed survival when we grabbed it, so we don't have the movement boost. But aside from the temporary buffs, there are also permanent buffs in all of the little destructibles around the map. These guys here, these ones, can we get a single? There we go. If you pop these, they will deliver permanent buffs to your character, which are very strong. Weapon damage, fire rate, these things stack up and they don't go away throughout the round. You can also break them with a roll, which is very useful. So if you're just traveling around the map, you can shift roll through things and actually obtain the buffs or the souls that they have inside. So do not neglect these. These add up big over time. As you're shifting between lanes, go for the boxes. If you're jungling, go for the boxes. They are very, very good to go for. And that is it for jungling. The other thing I want to mention are the 2 other objectives on the map, which is the urn. You'll hear the announcer tell you when the urn is up. That happens a lot during the map. Basically, the urn is on one side of the map and has to be delivered to the other side. You just basically pick it up. You can't use any moves. It gives you a little speed boost, I think, and you have to deliver it to the other side. Now, a big thing to note here is that people will wait for you at the other side. So it's usually a team coordinated effort. You may want to use the in-game VoIP system if you're with pugs, letting them know you're grabbing the urn, or if someone else is grabbing the urn, go cover them, because losing the urn sucks. It is team money, and that is a pretty decent objective to go for as a team. So every time that thing pops, maybe try and run it over real quick. You get a big boost of money, which is probably the most important thing when trying to get some more power over your opponent. The other thing that will pop at 10 minutes is mid-boss. Mid-boss is huge. He's in the middle. He does a lot of damage. You can't really kill him solo unless you're specifically built or really juiced out. This one is complicated. If you go for it, the enemy will almost always contest you. At the halfway mark, the mid-boss will scream, letting everyone know that it's being done. Once it dies, the buff for it will descend from the middle and land right down in the center. You have to heavy melee swing it to get it, and that can be stolen by the enemy team. So it doesn't matter who kills it. It only matters who smacks the thing. One of the big counters to this, if you wind up killing mid-boss, is going in the middle next to it and hitting your parry button. Parry is the counter to melee. If you parry a melee, the person who's meleeing gets stunned for 2 seconds. So what you can do is have one person stand on the buff getting ready for the time when it lands, another person ready to heavy swing on your team, and then you basically just counter any enemies with a parry. So that's a good strategy to go for when killing mid-boss to secure it. The reason that this mid-boss is so important is it gives you the refresher buff. Now, I've been told that the minions on your team are empowered when you kill mid-boss. I don't know how true that is, but sounds accurate. Basically, killing mid-boss, from what I understand, gives your minions a boost and also gives you the refresher buff. The refresher buff is basically when you die, it halves your death timer. So if you have a 60-second death timer late in the game, you now have a 30-second death timer, which is really good. You can basically push an objective super hard. Your enemy almost always will blow all of their ults on you when you go for an objective, and you'll be back up in 30 seconds ready to ult them. So you can kind of push, maybe get wiped, push again, which is really good. And you can also, if they're staggering you, killing one or two, the guys are back in there real quick. So very, very strong buff. Go for it whenever you half wipe the enemy team or full wipe the enemy team. Perfect time to go for it, and then you can sort of just steamroll to the end. But anyways, I'm rambling on about mid-boss. Let's continue over to item-related things. Let's go over first builds. Whenever you first get in the game, you can hit B, even in the pregame, when you're looking at your opponents before the match starts. You can look and browse builds. Now, the in-game build system is actually really good. I'm going to remove my camera here so you can see better. There is a public list of builds with people that upvote them with little hearts, and you can see how many upvotes each build has. Now, these are incredibly good, but I do want to note something about the builds. So let's say, for example, Gun Gigio Dynamo here. This one is hearted by 59,000 people. It is a good build for Dynamo, but it might not be what you are looking for. Now, Dynamo can be an incredibly strong support with really good heals and really good ultimate engages, right? He's got a big black hole ultimate, which sucks people in. You can boost this by increasing its duration, lowering its cooldown greatly, doing some extra added combos, say with like fire, and then ulting people in that fire. There's a lot of different things you can do with this, right? Now, these are not on that build. So keep in mind that some builds might be really good for some things and not good for others. So look around the different builds. I found that a lot of builds that I was looking for were somewhere in the top 10, not just number 1. I've also made a couple of my own builds, which just sort of suit exactly what kind of playstyle I'm going for. But definitely look them over. If it says it's for one thing, don't try and go for another. If it's telling you McGinnis is the gun build, don't go turret build with her. It would be terrible, right? Don't try and just focus on your turrets is what I'm saying. Anyways, the build system is great. Use these, especially initially when you're starting to get used to the game and you have no idea what each one of these are. They give them to you pretty well, and you don't have to really think much about it. And you'll get each item as you play, right? That's the build system. The other thing I want to explain is the way that the items work, the limitation of items that you can buy. So there are weapon, vitality, and spirit, and you get 4 of each. And then you have 4 flex slots. The 4 flex slots are unlocked via destroying different objectives. 1 walker, all walkers, 1 set of base guardians, and 1 relic inside the base. That is how you get all 4 flex slots. This is why it's so important to push objectives as a team. If you wind up towards the mid game with 0 flex slots and the enemy has some, you're probably going to lose that game because most builds are dependent on having a lot of one thing. And if you run out, you can't build into what you're trying for, right? You just have to sit there and select. Most things will wind up with a lot of extra flex to kind of amplify what it's going for. So focus on those flex slots. Weird. I've never seen the minions here kill the Guardian. That's random. Anyways, that's flex slots. Let's move on. A couple interesting items to note, by the way, that you might not be aware of initially are some very interesting active abilities, and you may want to look them over. They're the ones that have a little bit of slightly different color in the shop, and honestly, shopping through these can help you out a lot when you're doing something in game and you're like, man, if I could only just... There's probably an item for that. For example, Majestic Leap is ridiculously cool and gets you into fights, right? If you're having trouble getting on top of the enemy, you can use Majestic Leap to get in there, right? There are plenty of different items that do some very interesting things. So maybe take a moment and look them over. You don't want too many actives because they get pretty involved trying to use them all. But it is worth running through the shop and kind of figuring out what's in there. But I just wanted to show you a couple of the interesting bits in the shop. Go ahead and look through them. There's a lot of cool stuff in there. Let's move on to our final section, which is movement. Now, these are going to be some pretty advanced tactics that you may not be able to pull off immediately, but they are super interesting. So the first one I want to show off is sliding. If you hold control after you say shift or down a staircase, you can slide. Now, the interesting part to sliding is you'll notice the middle of my screen, my ammo count turns into an infinity symbol during the slide. You don't actually use ammo while you're sliding. So if you do get a good slide in, you get some extra ammo in the clip, which is actually a lot more useful for heroes that have super high attack speed. I think Haze has a very high attack speed. Yes. So if you're looking to do a little bit more advanced tactics in lane, you can get a really good burst from doing from sliding. Honestly, it's also even better if you have attack speed built in. That pretty much just doubled the damage that I can do there, right? So sliding is a very good but advanced tactic. If you're up against someone who starts sliding and shooting you, be on your guard. They, like most players at this point of the game, I have not noticed pulling it off. But anyways, that's sliding. The next thing I want to show off is the double dash. So shift is your dash button. I've been doing it a little bit throughout this video. Now there is a double dash. The double dash, you have to time it correctly. You'll notice your stamina bar goes blue whenever you dash. You have to actually jump when it's blue and you get a double dash. Now it does use 2 bars of stamina, but there is an item called kinetic dash, which gives you a buff and only uses 1 bar of stamina when you double dash. There's the double dash, there's the buff, and I only used 1 bar of stamina. So that is a pretty nice tactic. I use this on Dynamo pretty often because it gives you really good mobility. Kind of hard to pull off. You have to get used to it. You can practice it in the sandbox. Very useful for this. But yeah, really good bit of tech that you may want to use, especially when you're running or trying to chase someone down. The next movement piece is the down dash. A lot of people don't even know this one exists. You can actually dash downward by hitting control. Some of the champions fly at times, and control is basically the command to go down when you're flying. If you double hit control, it will dash downward. So if you're on top of a building and you want to get away from someone, double dashing down is a good way to do that. And then you can kind of juke. They'll probably slow fall down. You might already be inside a building. It's pretty good tech, as long as you have enough stamina to pull off these dashes. The other part that kind of combos interestingly with this is the movement speed buff you get while on the wire. This is the wire that would take you to lane. We're going to control to get off the wire and dash. Control, dash, jump. And you'll notice we keep a bit more speed. So if you want a little extra speed getting off the wire, or you just want to transition through the lane with it, it actually gives you quite a bit of movement. So a little bit of tech there with the wire. Controlling off of it keeps some movement speed, really lands you pretty far. I think that's it for all of my movement tips, and I think that's it for everything I've got. I'm looking through the list here. I think we've hit it all. There's a lot I've probably thrown at you if you've never played the game, but some of this might be super useful to you. Hopefully, I have some more advanced tips coming up soon. We're only a week in, but we have been kind of shopping for info pretty much everywhere. Maybe I'll come out with some specific guides or builds. I do have a really nice and interesting build for Ivy, which I've been playing a lot. I've been playing other champions too, but Ivy, I feel like I came up with a pretty fun strat to use, and we have a really good win rate with it. So might come up with a build guide for that. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this stuff was cool to you. And if you liked the video, give it a like. I would greatly appreciate it. But anyways, we will see you around.